And we're going to look at the text of here. Again, chapter 4. Adam and Hava are driven out of Gan Eden, and then the next story is that of Cain and Hevel. It's a famous story, but I want to show that from the very beginning, we see that they're imbalanced. The brothers, it's a sibling rivalry. It's the first sibling rivalry that we see, and sibling rivalry is a theme that goes throughout the book of Bereshit, and it's part of the strength of the book. The stories of Bereshit are stories that we could relate to. Everybody experienced some kind of, even if you're the best of friends with your siblings, you see other people, we all experience such things sort of firsthand. So that is something that we are all familiar with. And the Torah, and we could easily relate to it. So I want to look at the psukim and see how they're parsed. The first pasuk is this: Ve'adam yadat Hava ishto, v'tar v'teled et Cain, v'tomer kaniti ish et Adonai. And the man knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gotten a man with the help of the Lord. Verse 2. ותוסף ללדת את אחיו את האבל, ויהי הבל רועה צאן, וקין היה עובד אדמה. And again she bore his brother Abel, and Abel was keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. Now, if I were the editor, and I wanted to organize those verses nicely, I would have written this. Verse 1, Ve'adam yadat Hava ishto, man knew Eve his wife. And then verse 2, V'tar v'teled et Cain, v'tomer kaniti ish et Hashem. Pasuk by itself, for the birth of Cain. Vatosef la'elet achiv et Havel, and then she gave birth to Hevel as well. Either each one of the brothers in a separate pasuk, or both in the same pasuk. And then in the separate pasuk, vayi Hevel ro'eh tzon v'Cain haya oved adama. Their professions. Then in verse 3, it says that Cain brought from the fruit of the ground an offering to Hashem. And in verse 4, Hevel also brought an offering, and God responded to him. And in verse 5, God doesn't respond to Cain. So here also, I would have written it in a way that is parallel. In verse 3, Cain brought fruits, Hevel brought sheep. And in the next pasuk, God responded to Hevel, God did not respond to Cain. So already in the way that the text is written, we see the lack of balance. There is tension between them. And the tension is already also in the names. The names are symbolic. All through most of the names of Bereshit are symbolic. Cain comes from the word kana, mikne, possession, ownership. In Hebrew, there's no verb that connotes ownership. You can't say I own in Hebrew. You can say I have, yeshli, or this belongs to me, or this is in my ownership. But you can't say I own. But koneh also in Hebrew means the maker of and the owner of, which in many cultures was one and the same. So Cain symbolizes possessions. Hevel means vapor, and also vanity, right? We translate Havel Havali Amar Kohelet at the beginning of Kohelet is vanity of vanities, right? So Hevel is vanity, is nothing. And here's the tension between them. You have one who has possessions, and the other one who has nothing. One is a tiller of the ground, is a farmer. The other one is a shepherd. So this is a storyline, another storyline in Bereshit, the story of civilization. One storyline is that of human beings, of families as individuals, and the other one is that of civilizations. And this is where we start to see the beginning of civilization. Next will be the children of Lemech. He has 3 sons and 1 daughter, and they represent different branches of civilization.
But still, it starts here by Yehi Hevel ro'eh tzon v'Cain haya oved adama. Cain is the eldest one.
Right. So again, you're right. The lack of, but sometimes the Tanakh does that as we call shirshur. Like you do A B B A. You explain the last leg of the previous pasuk, but still, you're right. There's a lack of balance here. But this is something that this tension between shepherds and farmers is an ancient one. And when we look through the Tanakh, most of our leaders are shepherds. Moshe was a shepherd. Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov were shepherds. David was a shepherd. When the prophets speak about the future kings, Zechariah says, "V'akimot ilav shiv'a ro'im," I'll bring 7 shepherds. Christianity picked it from the from Judaism, and the and use the word shepherd or pastor. So the shepherds are praised in our tradition, and the tillers of the land of El Adama, even though they were part of the culture of Eretz Yisrael, but they were not the kings. The Torah actually wants us to denounce our ownership on the land every 7th year. So now this tension is also what created the beginning of civilization. When nomads, when shepherds started settling down, they had to build cities, they had to build infrastructure, and in many cases, the people think this is what benefited society. Other people say no, this brought over cultivation of the land and crops. So a lot of heavy issues depend on whether you're a farmer or a shepherd, and this tension between them is important because this is also the way that
also link with the sacrifice.
Yes, so it seems like the sacrifice always comes from the sheep, right? From animals. The question that bothered many commentators, and it really doesn't have I don't think it had a clear answer. Why did God prefer Hevel over Cain? What was the reason? So the Midrash wants to solve that and says that it says Vayave Cain mipri ha'adama, of the fruit of the land, which means not the best fruits. He got those, overripe tomatoes that they put in the box under the if you want it for slata matbucha, like Moroccan sauce, so you get them. And while Hevel brought mibechorot, so no, and then he brought the choices, but it's not written in the pasuk. And even if it's true, still, why would God do that? If you have 2 children, that your 2 sons, one worked on his drawing for hours and hours, and it's beautiful, and the other one just scribbled something. You don't just throw it away. Say it's beautiful, right? Accept it, and let him feel that he wants to do more, but you don't reject it outright. So it seems like the explanation for that is in verse 6 and 7, because after Cain gets upset, Hashem tells Cain, why are you angry? Here it's like I have the answer, like, why are thou wroth? And why is your countenance fallen? And then he says, the old JPS translates, if you do well, shall he not be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin couches at the door, and unto you is its desire, but you may rule over it. How did ArtScroll translate that?
But if you do not improve yourself, sin rests at the door. Its desire is toward you, yet you can conquer it.
Okay. Still, what is the idea of that? Where is the sin? Where is the sin coming from? What happened between them that there's sin? And God says that desire. What is the? How do we understand that the sin desires you? This is perfect for that part of our culture that is filled with guilt and shame, right? Sin is always after us, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, desire. We are always in that struggle, but we can control it. But the problem in the Hebrew is Haloim tetiv se'et.
What does it say?
Right. What is a se'et? It's a condition. If you do good, there will be se'et. But the word se'et is a part of a construct, or it's a verb. You can't say that is the result. And if you don't do good, we don't have the other leg of that. You should have said, Elohim tetiv, if you do good, you will control your actions. If you don't do good, desire is at the door, sin is at the door. So I'm not going to go into all the commentaries that do not work with the pasuk. I mentioned in the other class that John Steinbeck in East of Eden uses this verse. There's an argument between different scholars in the book of what is the exact translation of the pasuk. But I want to interpret this pasuk in relation to the way we interpreted the pasuk about that was told to the woman. Ve'elayich teshukato, ve'elav teshukatech, v'yimshol bach. The woman was told, your teshukah will be towards your husband, and he will control you, right? And I explained that the word teshukah is related to the word meshek, or sustenance. So Hashem tells the woman, your sustenance will depend on your husband, and therefore he will rule over you. So we take the same idea and we apply it here. Ve'elecha teshukato, someone's sustenance depends on you. Who's that someone?
But shukah is lust.
That's how we translate today. But in biblical language, teshukah is usually sustenance or abundance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're related with that. So this is based on a commentary that I read. I think it was a Naftali Tulsinai, a Bible scholar, that the word hatat that was usually in verse 7 is translated as sin. He said you should read it as two words and read lepetah hita atrovetz. Now I'm not saying, he says in a tradition of Bible critics, just correct the text and just put it there. I say no, there are two layers. There's the ancient layer of that meaning of the language that is now superimposed by that general idea of the sin. It is here. But what lies underneath is this. Lepetah hita atrovetz. You, Cain, you crouch at the gate of hita, of wheat. So what Hashem tells Cain is this. Why are you upset? Yes, I gave Hevel preferential treatment, but you're better than him because you are the guardian of the gates of wheat. And therefore, elecha teshukato. Cain's heaven sustenance depends on you. Ve'ata timshol bo, and you control him. In other words, God tells Cain, why are you so upset? You're better than him. You're stronger than him. I took his gift because he needs my attention. Don't we know that, like that story? Like the A student who always raises his hand and never gets attention. Same thing will happen with Yaakov and Esav. And here Hashem says that, yes, I helped Hevel. But you don't need that. And now that it maybe takes time to get used to the idea of a new reading, but the idea of someone crouching at the door and guarding the granaries is an ancient image. The Sphinx was actually an image that was supposed to guard the granaries in Egypt. So that crouching tiger maybe at the door is a powerful symbol in the past. And it's part of that tension between the shepherds and the farmers. God says, you're good, you're a farmer, you're good, you always have constant supply of wheat. And now the first part is understood. Halo im tetiv se'et, ve'im lo tetiv se'et, meaning whether your wheat will have good crops or not so good crops, still you will always have wheat and he will always need you. Whereas as Hevel takes his sheep to graze in the fields, he's not always going to have sustenance. Now, but what happens as a result? In verse 8, famous first murder, Vayomer Cain el Hevel achiv, and Cain spoke unto Hevel his brother, Vayibi yotam basadeh, and it came to pass when they were in the field, Vayakom Cain el Hevel achiv vayargeu. Cain rose up against Hevel and slew him. Now,
something else has to be happening here.
Right. Something else. So, in verse 8, Vayomer Cain el Hevel achiv. What does Cain say? We don't know what he said. There are different interpretations. One modern interpretation is that this shows the lack of communication. That was the core of the problem, that Cain and Hevel did not communicate. He tells him something, but we don't know what he said. Meaning that you're talking to the walls. Nobody hears you. The Midrash put something else here. The Midrash says that there are three different opinions of why they were fighting. One is that they were fighting over the prototype of the woman. He said that there was another woman who was created with Adam, wasn't good enough. God cast her away, and they were fighting over her, or they had an extra twin that they were fighting for. that's part of the question of like, who did they marry? Where did the women, other women came from? So they were fighting over her. One opinion is that they were fighting over their territories. Cain says, the land is mine, get off my land. Hevel says, you're wearing the hides of my animals, take them off. And the third opinion is that they were fighting over, and that definitely should not be taken literally, over the territory of Bet HaMikdash. Each one said, Bet HaMikdash, the temple is going to be built in my section. So obviously, none of that should be taken literally. Rather, the rabbis use that argument to say that what do people fight for? They fight for religion, the temple. They fight for women or desire, the first Hava or the other sister, and they fight for possessions. But none of that is written in the Pasuk. So it's possible that Cain told Hevel what God told him. And now they're fighting over God's love.
Why do you separate those three explanations I've heard, but I've always read it that verse 8 applies to verse 7. In other words, why aren't there a relationship between what God tells
Right.
Cain?
So
And then that reads the very next pasuk is the conversation. So why is that tied in?
No. So I think you're right. So that's what I'm saying, that Vayomer Cain Hevel Lahiv goes back to verse 8, saying to verse 7, Cain told Hevel what God told him. And if we explain it in that manner, that God says, you'll be in control, so Cain goes back to Hevel and says, why are you so haughty that, no, God accepted you. God loves me more than he loves you. What was the end of that? One killed the other. That, I think, is a cautionary tale. That is one of the stories in the Tanakh where God tells us, don't do what I did. The story is told as a warning. Look what happens. You give preferential treatment. I mean, later on in Bereshit, the Avot didn't learn from that. Right. It still happens, right? Another cautionary tale, by the way, according to one interpretation, is the Akedah. God asked Abraham to bring his only son as a sacrifice, and he's willing to do that. What is the lesson from that? Don't ask people something that they cannot refuse. They love you so much, they're going to do that, it's going to hurt them. So that is also, in a way, something that we learn from the text. There's an interesting midrash I want to share. I mean, I can share it here on the screen.
So we're learning not to emulate Hashem, but
rather
to learn from his mistakes.
Yeah. Yes.
Or Abraham
All
or Yaakov.
all your children are equal.
Yes. At least they have to feel that they're equal. And very often parents make the mistake of showing very clearly to their kids, to their children, who is better, and it creates a lot of tension.
My father used to say, "You see this? Can I like this eye more than this eye?"
So in the Midrash Rabbah, there's a actually this is on the next pasuk, that when God tells Cain, "Me'asita," what have you done? Called the blood of your brother cries out at me. Right? So the Hebrew is Eli is crying out to me. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says in the Midrash, this is very hard to say. And to say it explicitly, I mean, to write it is a problem, and to say it explicitly is more problematic. What is the problem? He says it's not written, don't read the text Eli, to me, but Alai, at me. The blood of your brother is crying at me. Why is that? He says, Lishnei atletin, shayu amdinu mitgosheshim lifnei hamelech. This is the allegory to two gladiators who were wrestling in front of the emperor. A very contemporary image of the rabbis, just to tell you where the Midrash was written. It's obviously Midrash that's written, in the first, second century. They have Roman colosseums in Israel. And ilu ratzah melech pershan v'lo ratzah melech lefarshan. The emperor had the power to separate them, but he didn't. So he gave the permission, the thumbs down, for the victor to kill the other one. נתחזק אחד על חברו והרגו, והיה מצווח ואומר, מן יבעי דיני קודם מלכה. The one who was killed was crying out, and he says, who will press charges against the king? The king is at fault. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai blames God in that story. It's a powerful midrash. And the funny thing, he says, you can't say it. It's not written. He read it into the text and said, you can't say it. So his daring commentary, really beautiful midrash. We go back to the pasuk. We see that there's a pattern that repeats itself. Adam sinned, now Cain sinned, but now there's an escalation. The sin of Adam and the woman was, we could say, sort of an arbitrary prohibition. Sort of, like, you can enter this room, don't enter that room. Why? There's no difference. I could switch the rooms when I want. Nobody was harmed really when that transgression was committed. With Cain, it's already a crime. It's a crime of passion. It's murder. So now humanity has deteriorated. The next crime will be that of Lamech. Lamech is sort of forgotten. He's stuck between Cain and Hevel and the flood. But Lamech makes an announcement. He says, anyone who will come against me, I will kill. So he says, I'm ruling by force. Now it's like premeditated murder. Now I'm willing to kill in order to establish my kingdom. That's Lamech. So Cain now shows us that civilization is deteriorating, and Hashem answers, Arur ata mina adama, asher patzta et picha. You are cursed by the ground, which has opened her mouth to receive the blood of your brother from your hand. So that's also mirroring what happened with Adam. Right? Adam and Adama were cursed. Ki ta'avod et ha'adama, lo toseft et kohalach, na'avana tiyeh ba'aretz. When you till the ground, it will not give you its strength. You'll be a fugitive in the land. Na'avana tiyeh ba'aretz. So this is the next level of what was told to Adam. Adam was told, you're going to work hard to get the fruit of the land. Cain is being told, even if you work hard, you're not going to get anything. But look at Cain's response. This is the interesting part here. Vayomer Cain el Adonai, gadol avoni mineso. So what, you can't, my sin is too great to bear. So either for you to bear or for me to bear. And in verse 14, and gerashta oti hayom me'al pnei adama, u'panecha esater. You have driven me today from above, from the face of the land, and I shall hide away from you. So what Cain is telling God, he is blaming him. Cain is very audacious, or chutzpahdik. What he's telling God, he says, it's not my fault. It's your fault. Why? And gerashta oti hayom, you drove me away. Like the verb garesh already appeared in the Torah with Adam. Vaygaresh et Adam. Cain tells God, you know what? That is strange. I see a pattern here. You drove away my father. You aren't driving away me. I have to hide from you. My father had to hide from you. It's a flaw in your creation. That is the chutzpah of Cain. He tells God, it's not my fault that your plan doesn't work. And then he says, "Vayiti na vanat ba'aretz, vayakol motzi yargeni." And now that I travel in the land, people will kill me. So what have you gained? Right? He's bargaining with God. What have you gained? More murder, more killings. Vayomer lo Adonai lachen kol orekain shivatayim yukam. And God says, therefore, anyone who will kill you, vengeance will be taken upon him sevenfold, and he marks him so people should not kill him. So the commentators struggle with this pasuk because obviously, who is going to kill him? Who is called Motzo? The Midrash came with a creative answer, which Rashi also quotes, and that is that that a man who commits murder loses his image of God, and therefore the animals are not afraid of him, and they're going to kill him. That's not what Cain said. That is, it speaks about people punishing him for what he did. And when God says that someone will be revenged, again, we're talking about people. So that is the second instance when we see that another thing. So actually, is the first instance when we ask, where did people come from, right? Because Cain speaks about other people who will see him. Then in verse 17, Vayeda Cain et ishto. Cain knew his wife. Who is this wife? Where did she come from? And then, in the same pasuk, Vayhi bonei ir, and he was building a city. A city for whom? For him and his wife? That's a bit pretentious. Huh?
And Hanoch.
So
And Hano, okay, 3 people in the city.
it seems like each of these are little parables,
Mhm.
and their real purpose is to teach us a lesson, and it has nothing to do with. It doesn't have to make sense. It's not. Really,
It's not a real story, right? No, it has a message.
Right.
First of all, those little hints tell us, like the 2 stories of creation, don't take the story literally. When God, we spoke about language last time. When the Torah says that God created mankind and blew life into his nostrils, it means that God moved on to the next phase of evolution and gave Homo neanderthal or whoever it was, or Homo erectus, the upgrade, right? The human 2.0 to become Homo sapiens. Because for 1,000,000 years we were stuck without language, without culture, without art or anything that marks modern humans. So there are other people. Torah tells us, you should know, there are other people at the time.
Where did they come from?
No, they were there all the time.
Right.
God created. So
He
God
didn't
created.
just create Adam and Chava.
Yeah.
Created
So
a bunch.
the story of Adam and Hava is a way
mythical story.
to bring to us the story of evolution under the guidance of God in a way that we can understand. Because otherwise, people at the time would not be able to comprehend that. So, and why did God create the world the way He did? We also don't understand. Thinking that what is the oldest remnants that were found 150,000 years now of humans in Morocco, Asl Hanout or something like that. So, what is the story of Adam and Hava? It's a story about God introducing the new humanity, which
So
is
Adam would be the first Homo sapien.
yeah,
And there are other species. But not
yes.
sapiens.
The punishment would seem to disprove 2 of the 3 theories about what they argued about. Because if
The
they
Midrash.
argued,
Yeah.
because if they argued about a woman, then you would think the punishment would be you would be without a woman.
Right.
If they argued about
The temple.
the temple, the punishment would be your ancestors went out of the temple.
Right.
So it's interesting
Right.
because if one takes that logical conclusion,
Yeah.
it disproves.
Doesn't work.
But if they thought about possessions,
Right,
then it's
exactly.
right because there's no possessions, right? So, and that proves maybe the argument that this was between Cain, who's established, who has a place, and Hevel, who is a nomad. But still,
And maybe it doesn't matter what they argued about. Maybe that's
and
the
that's
point.
another possibility. But this is, by the way, also the part of the beauty of the Torah, more the Torah than the rest of the Tanakh. The Tanakh is more elaborate, but the Torah is very terse. The Torah doesn't elaborate on details. And in some places, yes, but in many cases where the story requires more attention, Torah says nothing. Like the commentators we would be very happy if we would have 2 or 3 chapters on the Akedah and less text dealing with the construction of the Mishkan, right? Like 300 verses telling us the exact measurement of each curtain and rod and a plank. It's the IKEA catalog. I mean, I got to take away from it, but okay, we understand that. We want to know, what did Abraham tell Yitzhak? What was going on? What happened in Sarah's stand, in Yaakov's? There's so much that we want to know. But that is why we can still keep writing commentaries on it, because all these emotions, all those interactions are insinuated. If it would have been written clearly, this is what he said, this is what she said, and this is how it's interpreted. Okay, there's no room for interpretation, right?
So you're saying that by having less words, it makes it more important.
Robert Mueller spoke for 10 minutes, right?
I was thinking
And they still analyzing what he said. If he would have spent 3 hours, he would have said everything. Now 10 minutes. Okay. So this is part really of the beauty of the story. Maybe that's why it says that Cain vayeshev be'eretz Nod. Nod is from Nar Vanad, It's a place of nomads. He's Kidmat Eden. He's in front, east of Eden. That's where the name comes from, east of Eden. But he's a nomad. Vayi boneh ir, and he was building a city. Was never the Midrash says, but I think it's true. It doesn't say Vayiven, and he built, and he was building a city all his life. It was never able to settle down. And then
He was wandering.
no, so it says Vayeshev be'eretz
You
Nod.
shall become
Right.
What God says. Then.
God says now Vanati Abaretz. Right. But God also
Be a
told
nomad.
God also told Adam that he will die on the day he eats from the tree. So God tells him now Vanati Abaretz, and Cain chooses what to do with that. But I think that what happens here is
Just tell me,
an
tree of
evolution-
life or the tree of
the tree of knowledge.
Mhm.
He told him if you
You'll-
eat from the tree of knowledge, you'll die
You'll
on the
surely
same
die.
day.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he doesn't say when.
It doesn't say when, right? Yeah. But we assume
in 1,000 years you're gonna die.
yeah, but we assume it's a death punishment is immediate, and God
Otherwise it would be
alleviates it.
forever.
But I think what happens with Cain is not a premonition, but is an introduction to what will happen after the flood. Adam is let go, sort of the hook. Cain is also forgiven. Then Lemech also goes without recognition or punishment, and then we get the generation of the flood, which is plagued by Hamas. Hamas is injustice that is done in an official way. That is the precise definition of Hamas in the Tanakh, is not just injustice, but injustice that is done under the disguise of justice, like the Nuremberg laws. That would be Hamas. So, and what happens after the flood, after the destruction of humanity? God says, "Shofech dam Adam, ba'adam damo yishafech." He who sheds man's blood, by man his blood will be shed. Meaning that you don't let a murderer off the hook. He has to be punished. God says, in a way, I made a mistake. I should not have told Cain that your killer will be revenged. Why? He's a murderer. Imagine that someone would have come today, someone who committed murder, and we say you're going to be punished. You're going to be a nomad. No, this is horrible. I'm going to be a nomad? What is going to be with me? Oh, you know what? Anyone who kills you, we will punish him. Beautiful, right? It doesn't make sense. God says that doesn't work. And that is really ancient society. What God does with Cain, these are the laws of the ancient Near East. A murderer would have been able to get off the hook by paying ransom.
Mhm.
Remember we spoke about
That's right.
that's right. So the Torah says several times, "Lo tikhu kofer lenefesh rotzeah." A murderer cannot redeem himself. Because ancient society would have said, "We already lost one member of society. We're not going to lose another one." Or if the killer is an important person, we cannot punish him. We need our king or our doctor. Okay, let's see who's not. Oh, let's take this guy. Well, from here, the famous story in the New Testament about Barnabas and the thief who was being and they didn't replace him eventually. But that is something that goes all the way back to the time where people would give a slave for their life, or they would pay ransom. Torah says that does not happen. A murder should be killed because human life is priceless. You cannot put a price on it. And the reverse is also true. The ancient Near East would apply capital punishment or corporal punishment for monetary offenses, and the Torah says no. Only you pay for damages by money, but not with life or physical damage. So the Torah changes the system, and that's where we see it. Cain belongs to the old system. Post-flood is the new system.
One thing,
Yes.
the Torah and we today spend 95% of the time speaking about Cain.
Yes.
And almost no time speaking about Abel.
Yes.
All he did was devote and did what Hashem asked
Right.
him to, and there's almost nothing that discusses the significance of doing that and meeting an untimely death. I'm
Right.
curious as to
His is the victim, or you could say a victim of God's treatment of the brothers, and maybe God makes up for it later on by choosing the shepherds, by and the idea of the shepherd as hevel, vanity, is that, some commentators wrote about that. The shepherd feels closer to God. He's not, the farmer has a field, has a house. It's hard for him to get up and go. The shepherd is out in the field, is in the open. All the beautiful Tehillim of David HaMelech written in the desert show that. And maybe that was also some prediction of what will happen with Am Yisrael, that will be nomads. We will learn how to pack up and go from place to place. So Cain now has, we find 7 generations after Cain, and now comes Lamech. This is verse 19, and this is another development of civilization. Lamech is symbolic. I think that's the symbolism of the name. It sounds like Melech. Yeah, today Lamech is like a shlim as a kunilemel, right?
What?
Lamech is like a fool, but Lamech is really the word Melech jumbled. So he's a king, but who's misled, who doesn't know the right direction. He has 2 wives, Shema Hat Ada, Shema Shenit Tzila. And then that could maybe it's symbolic of the duality, the dual life that people led at the time before the Torah, of one wife, one woman at home, that she would bear children and will be in charge of chores, and then a woman at the temple for pleasure. Because the Midrash says that Ada comes from the word Idui in Aramaic, which means hirayon. Tzila is tzel, shade. So it's like one was, Rashi says they had 2 wives, one for beauty, one for children. But it didn't work for him because both of them bore children to him. So, but I don't know. This is interesting. I don't necessarily have clear understanding of why we have those 2 women here. But we do have those 3 brothers, Yaval, Yuval, and Tuval Kain. In verse 20, 21, 22, Yaval is the father of all who dwell in tents and have cattle. So, ironically, the great-great-grandson of Cain becomes a Hevel, but his name is Yaval, which sounds a little bit similar. Shemahiv Yuval, his brother Yuval, was the father of all who handle the harp and pipe. He's a musician. Vetzila Gami Yaldat Tuval Kain, which bears the name of his great-grandfather. Lotesh Kol Choresh Nechoshet U'Barzel, the forger of every cutting instrument is a blacksmith. V'achot Tuval Kain Naama, and their sister Naama. So we have 4 children, and they are sort of the pillars of civilization. That's let's start with Tuval Kain, a blacksmith. He represents technology. And back then it was the blacksmith, and then with each generation you have someone else who's at the forefront. But that in general is technology. Yaval in verse 20, Oelu Mikne, is the agriculture. So we have agriculture, we have technology. Na'ama, we can understand as from the word pleasure, maybe entertainment, just leisure. It's also important. But what is the importance of Kol Tofes Kino V'Ogav? Is also a musician who plays in the background while the others are working. So I think the answer is that music in ancient times, even today, but in ancient times much more, music was the vehicle of education. This is how you remember things. The elders, the women would tell stories, would sing songs, and that's how they would teach the future generations. There was a study that was conducted over I don't know how many years. People tried to figure out whether the poems of Homer were written down or not, and their conclusion was that they were not. They were oral, and that the bards or the troubadours, whoever would sing them, knew general rules, and they would work with the verses as they would go along, and they would remember thousands of lines of song. So I usually do this experiment when I wanted to show that we remember better with music. So I ask people to remember to quote from memory a favorite book. So people have a lot of favorite books, and they can say maybe a phrase from each. Except for one girl who stopped me in high school and quoted the whole first chapter of the Harry Potter. But that was an exception, right? So it's very, how many books can we remember? We don't remember like a paragraph here, Call Me Ishmael, right? This is
Right.
The Dark and Stormy Night. But when we think about songs, if you love music, you can remember hundreds of songs with their lyrics. It's amazing. How does it work? So it works because there are two areas in our brain that process. One processes words or language, and one processes music. So when we hear music and words, and really, we can't remember music really. When we can hum it, but we can't tell it. It's frustrating. But when we hear music with lyrics, two areas of the brain light up and they start working together. So they create new connections, and they stay there. And those are, by the way, the earliest memory that we have are of music, and those that come in first leave last. So people that suffer of dementia and Alzheimer, when you play back to them music that they used to hear before they were 20, they light up. It's an amazing. There's a documentary about it. It's called Alive Inside. It's on Netflix. It's worth watching. It's just amazing. So this, when we know all that, and you look at this sort of like trivial knowledge here, Torah tells us who needs to know that Yaval was a blacksmith. There was a farmer. There was a musician. She was pleasant. No, the Torah tells us this is civilization. That we are telling you things that go back, who knows, tens of thousands of years. This is what you need with society. The musicians who transmit knowledge, technology, and agriculture. Lemech declares, Ish harakti lefitzei v'yeled lechaburati. I killed a man for wounding me and a child for bruising me. Meaning that he establishes now the law. This is in verse 23. He establishes the law of violence. We call it in Hebrew or in Aramaic, kol de'alim gvar. So from Adam, who transgresses the forbidden fruit, to Cain, who commits murder, crime of passion, to Lemech, who says, I'm going to kill. He announces it. And now comes Seth, Shet.
Wait, he says he's going to kill? He asked the question.
Oh,
That's in English.
Ki'ish, right. Oh, that's our scroll. How do they translate?
No, they have it as a question. He said, have I slain a man by my wound and a child by my bruise? ?
Yes. So that follows the Midrash. The Midrash says that the Midrash wanted to tie in Cain and Tuval Cain, and there was a fantastic story there about Tuval Cain, Lemech being a hunter, and he's blind. So he goes into the field with his son, Tuval Cain, who's the blacksmith, and he says, show me tell me where to shoot the animal. And he sees Cain from afar, but Cain has already 7 generations after he died, after he was cursed, now looks like an animal. So the kid didn't recognize him. He thought it's an animal. He said, go shoot in that direction, and he shoots and kills him. And then when he finds out, he touches the body, finds out it's his great-grandfather Cain, he strikes his hands and he smashes the head of his son between them and he kills it. This is a crazy story. Sorry to say. She brings it. Everybody studies it like in Kita Aleph. It doesn't make sense. You have to be really very, very powerful to kill someone by smacking his head. And Yaval, the Tuval Cain, was already an older man. He was a blacksmith. He's not a child.
He fell down and hit his head on the
Yeah. And so why was this story told? The Midrash the rabbis like to tie things together, not to leave gaps. So Cain was told, he who will kill you will be revenged sevenfold. And when Lamech kills someone, he says, Shivatim, in verse 24, Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, and Lamech 70 is sevenfold. So they say, oh, so Lamech is the one who killed Cain. And he's the seventh generation. How? Cain, in verse 18, Cain, Hanoch, Irad, Mehuyael, Metushael, Lamech. Lamech is the seventh. No, Lamech is the sixth generation. How do we solve that? It was not really Lamech, it was his son, Tuval Cain, who told him where to shoot the arrow. So they had to work it together.
Cain lived such a long time.
Yeah. So he's rewarded by that, right? To live. So,
49.
but there's the bigger problem with that. It's that there's a parallel story in Scandinavian mythology. So it seems like somehow through the Greeks it came to Eretz Israel at the time of the Midrash, and they liked it. This is about Loki, the god of mischief that everybody knows now from the Avengers, but in is a character from Greek mythology, from Scandinavian Norse mythology. So Loki misleads one of the gods who's blind, Baldur, and tells him to shoot and kill his brother. So the same story that you guide a blind marksman and
They did it as a learning tool.
yeah, maybe
But it's not
To
the
teach.
Torah.
Just like the Greeks used it to teach.
could be. Maybe they just want to intrigue the students. But the explanation is very simple. The declaration of Lamech, in light of what we said before, that God let Lamech Cain off the hook, and now things deteriorate, is Lamech comes on the stage and says, I've killed and I will kill again if anyone stands against me. And why is that? Ki shivatayim yukam Cain. Because God told Cain that anyone who will punish him will die or be punished sevenfold. So who cares? Like, let din veled dayan. There's no rule, there's no judgment. Going back to why ArtScroll put it with a question mark, I forgot. The Midrash goes on to say that after Lamech killed his great-grandfather and his son, his wives separate from him. They say, we don't want to live with you, you're a murderer. And then he comes and says, what, do you think I did deliberately? It was a mistake, right? And question mark. But that's where ArtScroll deviates from the text and
It's one place.
But it says
that's, yeah, one of the places in this page, I meant, on this page. Yes, what? Yeah.
No, I made a mistake. It says, וידע אדם עוד את אשתו ותלד בן ותקרא את שמו.
Right. So, but that is a flashback. That didn't happen after all this. That tells us back then, Adam already had a son, his name was Shet, and the Shet's son is Enosh. Azuhar likro b'shem Adonai. Then people started calling upon the name of Hashem, so they know God. The Midrash says the opposite. Hal, from the word hol, that they secularized God's name and sort of went into paganism. So it's really interesting. So
what does Enosh have to do with that?
Enosh is the third son of Adam, but it's interesting.
The son of Seth.
Adam, Shet, Enosh. Adam. No, third. I meant third descendant, third generation.
Third generation,
right?
Right.
And it's very interesting because the word Adam and Enosh became synonyms. We say in Hebrew Ben Enosh, which means a human. Humanity in Hebrew is Enoshut, even though it's not in the Tanakh, but it comes from there. And the combination of Adam, Shet, Enosh appears several times in Tehillim. It's not directly, it's alluded to. So they're like, this is the real origin of humanity. And Enosh is derived from Ish. So this is to show that Cain did not marry to be Adam's true descendants, but rather it's Enosh. So now we come to chapter 5. The Sefer Toldot Adam. Okay, that is a recap of creation. And again, the Torah tells us, Zacharun keva bara, male and female, he created them. Vayvarech otam, and he created and he blessed them. Vayikra et shemam Adam, and he called them Adam. So here the Torah says again, equality of mankind. And now we have a long list of
It's the equality between Zachar and
the Keva. Yeah, between Zachar and Keva. And then,
He's on your side. don't worry.
yeah, I'm on yeah. And then we have a long list of the descendants of Adam, which is also perplexing, because we have Adam giving birth in 130 years, and he lives 930 years, and then Shet lives 912, 815, and so on. And it goes down until Methuselah, the only one who has a little spike, 969 years. So what is how do I understand this longevity, long lifespans? So some people try to, I heard this argument that they said it's not the same year. It's so
Adam lived only 30 or 100 shana. He didn't live it.
before he
That's when
gave
had
birth. Before not gave birth, before he had
Then he
his
lived
wife
900.
gave birth.
930 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Then another 800 years. So 930 years. So some people say, divided by 10. So I exaggerated. So Adam lived 93. So that's beautiful. The problem is that it continues. Where do you stop in Bereshit? Abraham lived 175 years. They mean it was 17 and a half. How do you do that? Some people said the rotation of the sun and the moon, wasn't. Doesn't account for the couple of seconds if you go back 10,000 years.
I've heard some explanation
Yeah.
where they say that the atmosphere was so pure,
Yeah,
there was more oxygen,
yeah.
and the plants were so wonderful and healthy.
But once again, it's
That could be. But even with that, they wouldn't be able to live, I think, over 140 years, because just for biology, our cells get shortened the way with age. Even the healthiest people, their cells will get shortened with age. This is the problem that they had with Dolly, the cloned sheep, the first cloned sheep, that it died of old age at a very young age. Because
that's right.
Right. So the one who offered an explanation to that, and I think it is valid, is Professor Cassuto, who was an Italian Jew and a rabbi who wanted to refute biblical criticism. And we spoke about that when I said in the first chapter of creation how the Torah deals with the myths of the ancient Near East, and we'll see it with the flood. This is a big one, a very important myth. But one of the mythical concepts in the ancient Near East and also in Egypt was that the kings were deities or semi-gods, and they lived ridiculous long lives, like 26,000 years. That was so you can never. I think in Chinese culture, up until not too long, right? The emperor was called Eternal, right? Then the city was the eternal city. So the Torah pulls the rug from underneath that myth by saying that man was created in the image of God. Everyone, no kings, it doesn't matter who you are. And then Shabbat, everybody rests, also equality. But here the Torah has to deal with, people would come and say, how come our heroes didn't live so long like their heroes? So this is deprogramming or reprogramming humanity, saying, yes, you're right, they did live long life, but what is the max? There's a bar you cannot pass, which is 1,000 years. This is really the connection to maybe in Tehillim, when the poet says, "Ki elef shanim b'anecha, ki yom etmol ki ya'avor." 1,000 years for you like a day. So the limit is 1,000 years. It's a big number. No one lives over 1,000. Closest is Methuselah, 969, right? But it drops constantly. So you start almost at 1,000, and then every generation loses like 50 years, except for the little spike with Methuselah, and then Lamech lives 777 years. Nice symbolic number, 777. And then the flood. After the flood, we started with the Noah, was like 600 years, and it keeps dropping 5, 4, 3, 2. When Lamech, Terah, who was the father of Abraham, lives a little over 200, I think 205, and that's it. And then Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, it keeps dropping. So the Torah readjusts our system. It doesn't say outright it's impossible because people will rebel, but it says this is how it happened, and that is something that we'll see later on with other things, also with the flood, and not only with the myths, also with certain mitzvot that the Torah wanted to introduce. Instead of saying outright you don't do that, the Torah says you do it in that manner. I'll just briefly 2 examples. One is slavery. The Torah is against slavery. Even though unfortunately there are some people who think that when Mashiach comes, slavery will be reestablished. There are some people who believe that. The Torah is against it. But the Torah, the Hashem knows that if He comes and tells people, you cannot own slaves, it's not going to work. Instead, the Torah readjusts the whole system and the laws of slavery. The Torah is also against vendetta, against blood revenge of relatives coming in and taking or people taking the law into their hands. Instead of saying that directly, the Torah says, if you find the killer outside the city, you could kill him. But if he makes it into the city, you cannot touch him. So the Torah provides protection and also guarantees that any killer or murderer deliberately, mistakenly will run right away and give himself in. Brilliant system. And that happens in many other things. So the Torah, I'm saying that this is not completely far-fetched to say that the Torah deals and reckons with people at their level, accepting some of their beliefs and readjusting them.
Same thing with animal sacrifice, by the way.
Same with animal sacrifices, yes.
Eating of animals. Also.
And eating of animals also, yeah. The ideal is vegetarian. Always tell people, if you believe in Biat HaMashiach, go eat your steak now because it'll be too late later. Okay, we'll finish here today. Okay. So this. I think maybe it's here. Yeah.
Oh, 8:20 we have them in Hama.
It's the same place, just in a different universe.
No, wait. What is
What's Rabbi Anthony teaching?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just here for Mincha, really.
Oh.
Mincha is over there.
Yeah.
That I know. But I think that I saw that he had a class too.
Maybe another day.
Sometimes after Maui.
I think tonight there's another class. Rabbi, who's teaching? Kavya. Here, right?
Well, I guess the schedule on that thing is.
Oh, the website
Yes.
that I heard.
That's at 9 o'clock.
I mean,
Sometimes
I
Rabbi
earlier if I
Anthony
knew
is teaching after Maui.
We have class at 7 if you want to join. Yeah, okay.
I like that they did the math for us. It basically says each one, Anash lived 90 years, but God